Hey, welcome back. Let me ask you something. Did you vote last year thinking Social Security would finally be tax-free? Because if you did, you're not alone. And you might be wondering, wait a second, wasn't that supposed to be part of Trump's big plan? A lot of folks were expecting it, especially after hearing it over and over again on the campaign trail. But here we are in 2025 with a brand new tax bill on the table. And guess what's missing? No tax break on Social Security benefits. Now, I know this hits close to home for many of you. Social Security isn't just another line on your paycheck or something far off in the distance. It's what many retirees rely on to stay afloat. So when a promise this big doesn't make it into the actual bill, it's more than just politics. It's personal. That's why today we're going to talk through what happened, why that promise was made in the first place, and what the new bill does include instead. Stick around, because there's a lot here that could affect your wallet now, and even more in the years to come. And before we get too far, let me know in the comments. Did you expect Social Security to be tax-free this year? How do you feel about the way this turned out? If you find this helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future updates. I always try to keep things honest, informative, and clear. So, let's start with the promise itself. During the 2024 campaign, President Trump made a bold pledge. He said there would be no more federal income tax on tips, on overtime pay, and yes, on Social Security benefits. He framed it as a way to help working families and retirees alike, which made sense. These are groups that often feel squeezed by rising costs and flat incomes. And that message landed. It especially resonated with seniors, many of whom live on fixed incomes and pay taxes on the very benefits they worked decades to earn. If you're one of them, you probably thought, finally, some relief. You might have imagined that a big change was coming, one that could help you keep more of your monthly check. But now we're seeing the actual bill that House Republicans are backing. And it doesn't include this tax break on Social Security at all. It's just not in there. The bill has been called big and beautiful, but depending on what you were hoping for, it might feel more like something important got left out. So what is in the bill? Well, let's walk through it. Now, instead of eliminating the tax on Social Security, the bill offers a few smaller pieces of relief. One of them is an additional $4,000 income tax deduction for people 65 and older, as long as your modified adjusted gross income is under $75,000, or $150,000 for couples filing jointly. Now, that's not nothing. It does help lower and middle-income seniors a bit, but it's also very different from a full tax elimination. A deduction just reduces the income you're taxed on. It doesn't remove the tax entirely. So if you were expecting your benefits to be completely tax-free, this probably doesn't match what you had in mind. And this leads to a fair question. Why didn't the bill include what Trump promised? Well, there are a few reasons, and some of them have to do with the way Congress works. For example, there's something called the Byrd Rule in the Senate. It basically says that if you want to pass a bill using reconciliation, a fast-track process, you can include changes that don't directly relate to the federal budget. And changes to Social Security tax policy, those usually get blocked under that rule. That means you'd need 60 votes in the Senate to make a change like this happen. And in today's political climate, 60 votes is a steep hill to climb. There just isn't enough bipartisan support to push that kind of sweeping change through. But even beyond the procedural hurdles, there's the financial reality. Taxes on Social Security benefits actually fund a large portion of Social Security and Medicare. This might surprise you, but just in 2025, taxes on Social Security benefits are expected to bring in over $100 billion, $60.8 billion for Social Security and $42.6 billion for Medicare. That money helps keep the system running. Without it, those trust funds would run out faster. If we were to cut out those taxes without replacing the money, we'd be looking at big shortfalls even sooner than expected. Right now, the Social Security Trust Fund is projected to be depleted by 2034. If the tax on benefits were repealed, that moves up to 2032. And if you include the elimination of taxes on tips and overtime, some projections show that benefits could be cut by up to a third by 2035. That's the trade-off. Give people more money now, or keep the program alive longer. It's a tough balance, and depending on who you ask, there's no perfect answer. Now, let's talk about how this fits into the rest of the bill, because it's not just about Social Security. The current GOP tax plan also includes temporary tax breaks on tips and overtime. That part of the promise did make it in, and it would raise the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500. But here's the thing. Many lower-income families wouldn't benefit from the credit increase because they don't owe enough taxes to use it. There are also big cuts to Medicaid, up to $880 billion in reductions. These include work requirements and lower federal support for some state programs. Critics say these kinds of cuts fall hardest on vulnerable groups, including seniors, while the benefits of the tax bill tilt toward the wealthy. One analysis says the top 0.1% of earners would gain more than the bottom half of Americans combined. And that's got a lot of people asking, is this the kind of tax reform we really need? Now, back to Social Security. One more thing worth noting is how this affects fairness. Right now, most lower-income seniors don't pay much, if any, federal tax on their benefits. So removing the tax altogether would mainly help wealthier retirees. According to the Tax Policy Center, the richest 20% of beneficiaries would get over $7,000 in tax cuts each year, while those in lower brackets would see almost no change. That makes the system less progressive. It helps those who need it least. So then, where does that leave us? Well, the administration still supports the idea of eliminating taxes on benefits, at least in its public messaging. Trump has continued to mention it in speeches. He's painted it as unfair and outdated, and you can understand why that message hits home. After all, if you've worked your whole life and paid into the system, why should you be taxed again when you finally get to collect? That's a valid concern, and it's one that resonates with a lot of people. But passing big promises is a different story from campaigning on them. Once you hit the actual budgeting process, it gets a lot more complicated. So then, what can you do right now? If you're over 65 and your income is under $75,000, that new $4,000 deduction might help reduce your taxes a little bit. But you'll still want to check your tax situation closely, especially if you're receiving other income like pensions or retirement account withdrawals. And if you're hoping to see that full tax cut come back into the discussion, keep an eye on future proposals. The current bill is still being negotiated and things can change, but as of now, it looks like the Social Security exemption isn't coming anytime soon. And let me know in the comments, do you think Social Security should be taxed? Or should we find a way to make benefits fully tax-free without hurting the program? Also, if you've ever tried to figure out why your check is lower than expected after taxes, share your story. You never know who else might be going through the same thing. And if you made it this far, thank you. These topics aren't always easy to talk about, but they matter. The way we fund Social Security, the way we treat seniors, and the promises made to retirees, they say a lot about our priorities as a country. So let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back with more updates as things develop. There's a lot still on the table, and I'll be here to help you make sense of it all.